Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Ryan.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm having a hard time remembering things, Rachel. I know there's something important in this brain of mine. There's something deep down in here, a piece of shrapnel perhaps, but no, there's some important words that are just in there. Some woman said...
You know them.
Some woman...
You know her. You know the truth.
Some woman, some sexy woman said yum yum, but I can't remember the context, which I know is for kings. I can't remember what the context was for that line. I can't remember. Something important is said about yum yum. I don't know, Rachel, but I guess we're going to learn along the way why yum yum's such an important phrase. I think we even named this show after it. Is that correct? Yum Yum and beyond? Because we're talking about space above and beyond. But why Yum Yum, Rachel? Do you know?
I do. But you have to learn it for yourself, Ryan. It's part of your recovery.
It's part of my recovery process. And I guess all I have for the second being is a sexy woman licking her lips, I think. And then, did she do something else before saying yum yum? I feel like she did some other physical gesture. Man, I wish I could get it in there. Hopefully, before this episode ends, I have a startling revelation before my brain is electroshocked out of my mind. Oh, Rachel, we're here to talk about Space Above and Beyond, a television series from, the 90s, mid-90s, a one-season darling that got brutally cancelled by Fox, so there's a lot of things left unsaid, but also things that are explored. We're here today to talk about one of the episodes that they got to release. I'm kidding. They released all of their episodes that they made, at least. It's not like it's one of those where they didn't release any of them. It's not like we've got the lost episodes or anything. But for those out there wondering, I have seen the show before. Me, Ryan, yes, I've seen Space Above and Beyond before. But Rachel, you haven't seen this before.
Nope.
This is all new to you, so there's no worries of spoilers here, folks. So if you're first time watching or revisiting Space Above and Beyond, you're welcome to join us and come along with us for the ride that is this series. So, do you remember, Rachel, the name of this episode, let alone what number it is? Do you know?
I remember my theory was that it was going to have something to do with his brother. So I think brother might have been in the title?
No. It's a statement that's very pivotal within this episode.
Stay with the dead.
Stay with the dead. And episode number, do you know?
16?
We're not that far. It's episode 10. According to the DVD description, episode 10, Stay with the Dead, goes as such. West's plan to lure Chig's soldiers into an ambush works, but after he's rescued, no one believes him when he insists that the rest of the 58th is still alive and needs to be rescued.
It really isn't his idea, though.
2. It was a little bit of a group effort, but
he didn't want to do it.
He came up with the fake distress call thing, and that was pivotal to this episode.
Yes.
So, diving in, I remember this one. I remember this one being a great turning point for me in my initial watch through, or one of my initial watches through, of the Nathan West character, because I was not as enamored with him. I didn't love him. I thought he was annoying. I was like you. I found him rather negative presence at times. But this warmed me to his character. There was a lot here that was given without being said. A lot of showing. A lot of relying on the actor's ability to get us to feel something for this character without it being something relying on heavy amounts of dialogue. Or bashing us with the themes so overtly like it was doing with his character specifically in those earlier episodes. So I remember this one quite fondly because it warmed me to Nathan West. I felt he had matured. I felt there was the tragedies and the weight of the war had finally hit Nathan West himself. There have been times where we've seen it hit the other characters and hit him on the fringes. He's matured, but to me this was one that really stuck with me when I think about this series because it is him losing that innocence in a way. It's him having to go through the horrors firsthand.
Yeah.
So overall, I have a positive relationship with this. And on this watch, I still had a very positive relationship. I was moved at points. I was thinking, wow, this has, as a series, gotten better and better at just hitting us with the feelings. This made me sad at many points. I was just jotting down in my mind, this is a sad show. We talked about that last time, but this time it was the entire episode just had this overwhelming sadness to it. The visuals, the music, the overall direction just communicated that effectively to me. How was it for you? This is obviously your first time. You didn't know what you were going into with this, so how did you go with this?
I had a weird journey with this episode, and that was all on me, not on the episode. So I was weirdly convinced that it was going to be a dream because of the way that it started. Just like the way that it like jumps into it and it has that sort of everything's fuzzy because West is sort of delirious and he has a head wound. It makes a lot of fucking sense. But my mind read that as, oh, this is going to be a dream. And then I was like, oh, he has a head injury. We're going to go into something now, or this is going to be part of something. And then I was just like, oh, okay, this is, why am I thinking this? Nothing in Space and Above and Beyond would suggest that they would do it was all a dream episode. And then I realized what it was. It was those things, but it was because I find the idea really interesting of if we went into their minds while they were being tortured by the chicks. So I was excited by the idea of what if West has been captured and this was his torture.
Okay.
And
you were wanting some more elaborate plot to be revealed rather than what the face value of it is.
Has zero to do with the actual episode.
But
my mind just went off in an entirely different direction when watching this.
And I think that's not unfair because you watch a lot of television, specifically of this variety. There are so many fake-out TNG episodes, for instance. Brandon Braga was a master-class writer of Star Trek when it came to the it's not all real, maybe this is a dream, ooh, is this some kind of torture or freaky mind fuck episodes? And so when you look at 1990s sci-fi television, there are a lot of those. Babylon 5 had their fair share as well, like going inside of Sinclair's mind and fucking with him.
Yeah.
So you are
like it's not unprecedented.
Yes, you are trained to look out for that, but often you don't get what this is, which is just it is it at the face value of what you think it is. Like when they say to you, he has a head injury and is having trouble remembering, and nobody believes his fragmented memories because it could just be severe PTSD, which it also is, by the way.
Yeah.
It is not just that it isn't that, it is also that, but because that sounds so much simpler than, actually, the Doctor in Star Trek Voyager is not actually a hologram, but actually a man who thinks is a hologram. But the twist is he's actually a hologram, and then there's a mindfucking, oh, look, there's Reg Barclay. He's trying to convince him that he's a real person and that they're in a simulation stuck on Voyager. That's a Brannon Braga thing. I keep bringing him up because I think of him a lot when I look at these. But this is more leading on the war story aspect of the sci-fi show that we're watching rather than what you were looking for. But did you...
But, it was a weird sort of prediction that was going on in my head because, I could tell that shit's gone down from the drop. And then the more details we got, the more sure I was that this information couldn't be correct. So I filled that gap with, well, it's a dream. That's why it's not going to work out and this isn't going to be true. And then the point hit where I was like, oh, no, this definitely isn't a dream. Do you want to guess what it was?
No. Which point?
When we had the scene with Out West, where it's outside West's room with McQueen and the Doctor.
Oh, yes, I understand.
I was like, oh, no, this wouldn't make sense and this show wouldn't push this far. So this is real. But how are they going to make it so that they aren't actually dead?
I understand. So did you like this episode or no?
Yeah, I liked it.
I just wanted to get a feel because you're skirting more at the what you thought it was going to be rather than what you actually did get from it.
That was interesting to share.
No, but I'm just wanting to point blank ask you. What did you like it? Did you not?
This was the phrase that came to mind after I finished watching it, which was, this episode had no right being as good as it is. And it really is off the back of the performers that this is elevated. McQueen fucking murders this role in this episode. He doesn't just kill it, he first degree fucking murders this shit. And I love it.
He's very good as usual. I think that the script is pretty decent, but it is definitely elevated not only by the wonderful acting, and honestly I think that West was the standout performance here. I thought he was spectacular. But this had very tight, stylish, but most importantly purposeful direction. It was not sloppy, it was not messy, it played around with being artsy, but without pushing it over the line to being eye-rolling or pretentious. Mm-hmm. There's lots of ghostly images or really wacky fun or eye-catching transition shots, but none of it was there just to be, oh, look at me, or sometimes in this medium, of television, they have these things because, oh, well, we want to beef up the script because the script's lacking, so let's make it just flashy with our editing and our overall production to hide the cracks that is a weak story or a weak script. I think that this script is fairly decent, but it is helped to be bolstered up by that direction. Yeah. I thought this guy did a great job, and I was just looking him up.
The sum of its parts.
And I was just looking him up. He'll go on to direct a few more episodes. He already did Hostile Visit, so that was his first one, and then he'll go on to do more. Thomas Wright, and I think he may direct the final episode of the season. So evidently, if they liked what he was doing, and hey, these 2 episodes that we have seen thus far, he has given us good direction. So I think that what really grabbed me in this particular viewing experience, and I'll pass it over to you to hear what you have to say about this too, is this had dialogue in it, yes, but most of the story and most of the feelings, as well as the exposition and information I got, was garnered through the visual storytelling rather than the lines of dialogue spoken. How do you feel about that? Did that happen for you or not?
Yeah, it definitely felt like there was trust in this episode, and that everybody was going to pull their weight. So there's a balance between showing and telling, and, making things clear and leaving some things left unsaid, and like using all of the layers of the medium to its advantage.
There was a great blending of things here. This is a series where the production of it has found its groove, at least for this episode in particular. I thought the music was always well played, always well placed, and just the ability to rely on the actors. We have looked at a lot of first seasons of shows. We've looked at, when we do Patreon content, we look at stuff like the first season of new things like Strange New Worlds, or those best or worst episodes of Star Trek, and some of those land in their first seasons, and you can just see a lot in these, especially the ones that are like 20-something episodes long. You can see them figuring it out along the way. And although Space Above and Beyond is definitely still figuring itself out, it's shown itself to be a stronger first season than a lot of the Star Trek first seasons, for instance.
Absolutely.
Which most of them, not all of them, but a good section of them, I would say, are near unwatchable. Like, they just have too many stinkers, let's just say. But they were bolstered up and put on life support because they are a recognizable name. But yeah, this episode, I just felt a lot for Nathan West, and again, I want to throw it over to you. You've had a struggling relationship with this character. You have yelled about him. You have screamed profanities about Nathan West, but over the course of the last few episodes, you have slightly warmed to him a little bit. And I'm curious to just have a Nathan West check-in, because also my prediction for this was we needed a Nathan West episode.
You've been guessing that for a couple, and we finally got one. And it's fucking great. And I did not see that coming. I was really worried that the next West episode was still going to fall into the same pitfalls, because those things that I didn't like about the character are still there, but they're pitched differently and played out differently. He's not a whiny fucking little bitch. He is a whiny bitch in this, but I feel for him.
Why? What are some moments or things that this episode did to help push you in this direction? Because I am curious, because I still am trying to find that within myself. There are moments I can definitely point to, but since this is your first time around on this series, I'm curious to know what were the things in this episode that helped endear you to Nathan West, a character that you felt very viscerally about?
Yeah. The key that I think that's really unlocked it for me within this episode is that his desire is selfish and selfless in a very different way than his search for Kylan is. Because, like, that got under my skin because he, like, just such a prissy little bitch about it.
Entitled.
Of like, it matters that I find her. We're meant to be together. The universe will move because I want it to. And it must right itself. And to right itself, I must be with her. And that's self-centered. I am the center of the universe. Main character energy did not enjoy.
Even though it was quite clear that the show was saying that's a negative thing.
Yes.
It is, even though it was saying that, it was still too much of a negative thing for you to take, because there are these things, right, where we talk about this so much in Star Trek Discovery, where, yes, the show is totally in the know about how it is playing with the tropes and with the archetypes and subverting and twisting, and that's what this is doing. Nathan West is a dark, twisted version of this type of lead character that you would have seen in these old war stories from, say, the Second World War. Where there's no irony to it. Here, there is a level of irony and awareness, but even with that, they needed to give us some more things to endear us to him, because he was still too much at a distance. You can stroke your chin and go, on an intellectual level, I understand what Nathan West is about, but the emotions, the human...
my brandy and ponder.
But on the human level, he was still too far for us to connect.
Yes. I wanted to see him fail because he wanted it so bad and from a selfish place. Whereas with this one, I wasn't just concerned for him. I was concerned for the rest of the 58th. And I was concerned for McQueen. So it is the fact that they're a community and working together. And to go back to that wonderful line, their butt is now your butt.
Remember him? I miss him every day. I understand those things you're saying. It's so true, because when we're looking at it in the confines of this episode, it is hard-hitting like that. But we also do have the benefits that this series has been slowly and quietly shifting and altering and molding the clay that is Nathan West. So when we do get up to this, it is earned. It doesn't feel like a drastic course correction or a manipulation of the audience to like the character now. He going through this and having to come to terms with aspects of himself feel deliberate rather than a move on the staff here to, our character isn't working, let's make them work, let's just alter them. And I've been noticing that, as have you in the last few episodes, that quietly in the background they're making Nathan West a mature character, because before he was immature. And that's the entire arc, is to see how not only the horrors of war harden Nathan West, but the camaraderie and the friendship and the ability to trust one another that he has with the 58th is helping him become a more three-dimensional person, a more empathetic person, somebody who's willing to think outside of themselves.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me to sort of work on the basis of the comparison of the ships, right? The science vessel in the pilot compared to the Saratoga. And he knew his place in the science ship as well as he knows his place in the Saratoga. But the depth and breadth of his connections are so much stronger on the Saratoga.
They've stripped him of his innate need to be a hypocrite. Because in the pilot and those early episodes, he was a hypocrite. He would say one thing but really think another and have no sense, no ability to see that flaw within himself. He would just disregard it. Oh, those damn tanks took my place. Oh, but I think they deserve rights, but fuck those guys. If it's over my rights, screw them. And he's having the ability to hold himself accountable now. We've seen that over the episodes. And here, him having held himself accountable enough is why his words about them still being alive matter. Because McQueen has seen that journey with this character, as have we, the audience. But for the majority of the episode, you see that West is struggling to believe in himself. Is his memories failing him? Are they tricking him? Are they leading him down a path that isn't true? But since he has held himself accountable so many times now, like we saw in the very last episode when it came to having Kylan in his hands, or what he assumed to be Kylan, and owning up to the idea that, no, I have to think beyond just this, he has to hunker in and go, no, I have to believe these memories. I have to actually think about these harder because I believe that they're alive. It's really mature, quiet character growth, but also I do believe that the team here, and I have no evidence of this, but I do think that they were aware that they made him too unlikable from the beginning. There's an obvious course that they wanted to go with, which was he's the young, selfish, arrogant hero that you saw in all of those old movies, but those old movies or those old books or whatever didn't really have a self-awareness about that of their main character.
Yeah.
But these guys do, but still they've pulled it together here, and for me, the two big keys to making me like West in this is that performance, the physicality that he brings to it, where you feel the trauma that West is going through, the physical trauma as well as the mental trauma, the way he's curling his body and how every step he takes, there's a huge weight to it that he's carrying the world on his shoulders, the silent looks at McQueen even, really harrowing stuff. His demeanor, his face, his body is telling me about how much hell this war is, more than just the stacks of dead bodies that they can show me.
I do want to say that opening is fucking amazing.
The opening of this movie, I was going to say movie, it was very cinematic. The opening of this, they threw you right into the center of the chaos, and it was shot and edited and just composed in a very artistic and felt like short film. Honestly, the cold open, this is, I think, the first cold open we've had where it really felt like this is a really thought out cold open.
Yeah. It shows the brutality mentality of triage in a war zone.
And the confusion of it all, the chaos.
Cool future tech thrown in.
But how scrambled Nathan West is, those close-up shots. And the second thing that really was the key for me to endear myself, and I do not have any malicious intent when I say this, but Star Trek Discovery really fails at telling me, not just telling me, but demonstrating to me and communicating to me what faith is and what faith is to its characters. This succeeded in that very much so, and you're already smiling. You know where I'm going with this. There's that pivotal moment where he has to convince McQueen that they're alive, and you need to believe me. Trust me. What's important? And McQueen, like the audience, says, well, it's Kylan, isn't it? And this is, again, character development, character growth. This is a turning point for West, where he admits, yes, she's important, and I have to have faith that she's alive.
But I know, I saw Shane. I know that they're alive.
And him saying that he has faith in the fact that Kylan's alive, but here he is in this moment, not letting that dictate his thoughts and his actions. Yes, he has faith that she's still alive. Yes, he wants to go out and find her. Yes, he wants to save her.
That isn't what he's worried about losing. In that moment, he is more worried about the 58th than Kylan. Because he'll lose that memory too.
And the funny thing about faith, and that's why it's a very nebulous thing. Everyone has their own viewpoints of what faith is to them, whether it is of the spiritual variety or of this type. That's why faith is such an interesting and really expansive thing to explore in your show, in your movie, in your book. Because if you have a certain statement to make about it, it feels unique anyway. Because there's so many different strands you can go off with this. That's why I get frustrated with Discovery. I don't know what they have to say about faith other than you just gotta have it. And that's it. I don't know what it means. But here, there's a really complex thing that Nathan West has about faith that I connect with as a person, where it's not a lack of faith, but this interesting middle-of-the-road thing where he has to believe that she's alive, but there's that part of him that knows that she could be dead. It's the Schrodinger's cat kind of thing, like, could it be alive, could it be dead, blah. And you live in that zone, but you have to continue on.
Yeah.
You have to continue on.
And there's another part of the evolution of Nathan West that I do want to touch base on, which is the fact that he is now a Marine through and through without reservation. Like, that idea or the relevance of the fact that he joined up for sort of the wrong reasons is entirely gone now. Like, the fact that he didn't choose the Marines because he wanted to be a Marine. That's not why he enlisted. And that no longer matters because he is a Marine. But that's interesting because the same is not said for Cooper. Cooper still resents that he didn't get a choice, that the judge put him there basically as a joke. He is still very much a Marine, but it hasn't become a part of his identity the way that it has for West and for the others.
Well, I was going to actually...
Because he's still, like, West sees himself as a solid part of the 58th.
Yeah.
And that is a part of who he is and what he is and why he does things.
I was going to actually say this episode does a rather drastic shift when it came to West and his marine status. And when I say drastic, I mean this in a good way. There's that sequence where they're debating and arguing about what's the best course of action now. And everyone in the 58th, except for West, are promoting rather morally dubious, ethically grey, and for Marine Corps values wrong ideas. But West isn't. West is looking at this not only just from a Marine perspective, but from a human perspective. There's a lot of statements thrown around from people like Shane, people like Cooper, and even Wang and Danfu, where this is a war against aliens. Our humanity is no longer relevant. We have to do these things. I know it's the Marine way to get our bodies back, but it's about being alive and spreading the message and all of that. You understand why they're saying that? But the fact that West is objecting to it, you also understand why he is objecting to it. Not only because you need somebody in this ensemble to do that, because obviously... Functionally, but you understand it because of his newfound place as a Marine, where this is... You can imagine that the things that he's saying are the things that McQueen would say in this scenario. We saw McQueen do similar things, actually, in Choice or Chance, where he talked about this. And again, to go back to Choice or Chance, this is in line with West's character, where West will go back for them. So I thought, yeah, you're bringing up this point about his place as a Marine and how he sees himself and how, yeah, it is... This is doing a lot for the character of West, and we needed this.
More depth than we got in most of the previous episodes.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that were focused on West. We did not get this level of detail. We did not appreciate the character in the way that we do in this episode. And it's beautiful. Because I appreciate this even more.
Yes.
Because they fucked it up in the first place.
I want to acknowledge, because I know sometimes when I listen to podcasts and they don't touch upon certain things, I'm like, I wish they at least reference these things. Look, there's other things outside of the West stuff, like when they're actually on the planet. I like the little back and forth about why don't they name planets after nice things? Like, can't this be the Chuckle Planet?
Yeah, when are we going to get a Chuckles Planet?
And I like all of that.
Yeah.
Or the general, like, that stark red lighting on their ship when they're going down. Those great shots of them hiding in the dirt and everything on this planet. Again, beautifully done.
Be Marines.
Be Marines. Their action was well done.
Be Space Marines.
The Chigs were here again, and they were shot in a way that was definitely
menacing.
They were shot in a way where it was to hide them as well. We got lots of faraway shots, a lot of out of focus shots, lots of
outline of them,
Dutch angling shots, just shots of the boots and the feet and the close-ups of the hands and the guns.
When the Chig is walking over West, when he's unconscious. Beautiful.
Just, I liked the funeral scenes. I thought they were very well done. I thought that they did it very tastefully. I look, Space Above and Beyond can be silly at times. I mean, we had Ray Butts after all, and it's pancake time. And that was very fun and campy. But I commend this series on being earnest. Sometimes it can be overly earnest, but I commend them for doing that because honestly, I think about a lot of these series, and there's even Babylon 5, for instance, feel the need to be more jovial because that's what the audience wants and or perhaps needs as well. But I just like that this isn't trying to be jovial. There's no funny moments in this episode other than like a passing line.
Yeah.
There is no funny cold open sting
And
bits or
like even the sort of funny line about the planets. It also makes you sad. Like it's a dark comedic moment.
and it's the writers making a jab at themselves
Yeah.
for having named their planet spooky things too often.
Mm-hmm.
The framing device became not a framing device anymore. You thought, and I
Yeah.
saw it on your face, as soon as they flashed back, I saw your face communicate, oh no, is this the fear planet again? Like that type of episode.
Yes. I was just like, oh no, you're playing with nonlinear structure again.
But here, the framing device is not him in the present with the injuries. It is those flashbacks.
Mhm.
They're the little things that this actual story is hanging off of, which is obviously West and his trauma and him trying to get the truth out and him trying to remember and him and McQueen's understanding of one another. That is far more well done here. And again, it shows us, it tells us that the show wants to do these things and has to learn how to do them better. It's only been a couple of episodes since we had the Fear Planet one. This is following in very similar footsteps, very similar ideas, but execution.
Mm.
And here's
Totally different.
and here's what I got to
Totally
say.
different.
This had something to say.
Yeah.
The Fear Planet one had things it needed to give us, but it didn't
And
actually know how to say anything.
some ideas. It had ideas for a plot, not ideas for a theme.
Yeah.
And this episode has both, and they work together.
What did you think about where the title came from and that general premise? So the thrust of why Nathan West has arrived where he is.
Is it he hid with the dead bodies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they had the idea of grabbing the 61st and putting
them
their
in
bodies
their
into their
uniforms.
uniforms and having Nathan. I don't think Nathan West was supposed to stay, but he got
No.
just knocked unconscious
Yeah,
from the
he
battle, and then they're like,
was-
"You got to stay
He
there."
was
'cause
meant
it's
to
safer."
run, and he was still in the kill zone. So then they were trying to draw him off more,
Mhm.
like draw the chigs off more. I think to
Yeah,
make sure the West was safe.
but by the time the firefighting happened, he was actually in the safest position. So stay there, stay with the dead. What did you think about that overall idea of them using the 61st's bodies as decoys, but also how Nathan West, where the title comes from? Because that was like a mystery throughout this whole entire episode of like, stay
Yeah.
with the dead, stay with the dead.
Yeah, because he's just like, she was saying it to me. She was saying it to me. But we don't know what it means exactly. And then the show goes, oh, McQueen, survivor's guilt. Makes a lot of sense. He is very clearly dealing with PTSD, so why would it not be survivor's guilt?
I understand myself as somebody with survivor's guilt and PTSD. Remember the Angry Angels from the pilot?
Mm-hmm.
I do. And they all died. And
Yeah.
how I got over it was knowing that it could happen to me next, anytime.
Mm-hmm.
And again, says so much about McQueen. That's his
Yes.
attitude. That's excellent, excellent classic. Another sequence that I want to talk about, that if I had one complaint with this episode, because we're talking up this episode pretty highly, and it's weird because and this isn't the phase where we go yum or yum yum, but I am wondering what's holding me back from saying that this is my favorite episode, because technically it's probably one of the best. It's a simple, quiet character study. The acting is phenomenal, but I don't know yet. Maybe there's just something personal about what my preferences are, but a thing that I really didn't like, and this could have been easily fixed. There's that scene with McQueen and the doctor, character, the scene you referenced as the where you knew it wasn't a dream, because they're showing us this. That did not need to be written the way it was, where the Doctor just overtly says what McQueen's thing is, which is, it's you who needs to let go, McQueen. It's you who needs to let go of him.
Yeah.
That was the writers telling me, the audience, because I may be too dumb to figure that out. Or they felt the need to have it more clear. You didn't need to. That's just one of those, you didn't need it. I got it. The way you were communicating it was very good, and I was enjoying it. But you saying it like that did water it down for me, and I didn't need you to do that. And that is my criticism of the episode. Like,
yeah, I had a bit of that with that scene as well, and getting like with that scene, they over-explain and under-explain the procedure. And I'm just like, okay, what are you doing here? Like, which way are you going? Because they start off with the, like, electrotherapy, and then I was like, oh, is that literal? No, that's not literal. We're going to explain this part of the procedure and then explain it the same way, but again and more. And, like, it just felt a bit clunky and back and forth, where it's just like, just lay out the information for me, because that is the fundamental purpose of that scene. Like, within the episode and for the characters, is to say, we need to do this procedure. But it's done, it's very clunky.
But it's in a way where you don't need to sand this to fix it. It's just you need to blow the dust off to make it better. There's another moment where this is
wait. I have an analogy. For me, it's not that. It's like they haven't blown the dust off and then they've painted over it.
Yes. That's a great way to describe it.
So it's just like, it's got these little pockets, and they're really noticeable because so much of the rest is just dry, clean, smooth, and looks pretty.
Well, that's the thing. You say pretty noticeable. Even for my eye, I don't think these are too noticeable. This is because I'm watching it for a podcast.
Yeah. Like small beans.
It's very small fry. Another moment that, again, because I'm looking at this through an analytical lens, and I'm thinking about the previous episodes and the writing team's habits, another little thing, and this isn't really a criticism, this is just a pet peeve at this point with the show. You don't need to keep referencing the 20th century in these cute little ways. I get it. You're being very cutesy, where McQueen or the Doctor says, like, oh, you think we would have progressed from what they did in the 20th century? It's like, oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You didn't need to acknowledge when his reference came from. Like,
can't we have other centuries for things? It's just, that's it.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend too much time, because they didn't spend too much time on it. It's just a little thing that I go, these sci-fi writers get hung up on those cutesy little things where they look at us, the audience, and reference us and our time and how we are. And
Babylon 5 and the 21st century.
Oh, Babylon 5 and the was it 1994 Kawasaki Ninja? It's an antique.
It was the advance.
And us and our need for fuel. But overall,
those damn fossil fuels.
Overall, effective episode. Why am I not thinking this is my top episode? I am going to sit on it. At the moment, there's no reason why this shouldn't be. I think that there may be just other ones I like because they got more overt thrilling things in them. But in all honesty, that shouldn't just mean that they're my favorite just because I find them more classically thrilling because, we're going to get into a Chig ship and shoot them on their homeworld. I don't need those momentous things to make them my favorite. I'm just looking at this because
I liked the action in this one.
Oh, I like the action, but it wasn't the purpose of the episode.
No, but they're being competent. They're using all of these military tactics while also being people and people who really want to fucking live
or die with dignity.
Yeah.
That was...
they don't fully acknowledge this, but it's like they want to break the cycle of the medvac teams being captured or killed and becoming bait for the next crew because the Chigs are counting on that.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to go through that again. They don't want to be the bait. They don't want to be a murder weapon for the enemy.
Yeah. I am going to sit on this one. I reckon when we do a series recap, I will mention this where this ranks and it'll probably be high up, but we've got plenty more show to go over. You initially thought that this was going to be a bad episode. I asked you last week, do you think it'll be a good episode? And you chuckled and said, oh no. And yet here we are. We've heaped a lot of praise onto it. Now, if I could just talk about structure for a moment here or certain moves in the writing of the series overall that we've gone through at the moment. I think, and this isn't a weakness for this episode, but it is a blemish growing on the show, which is we don't know. There's this Chig war that we have. But there are so many episodes where we're thrown into some random conflict, but we don't know what the meaning of any of it is. So it feels arbitrary. So they work.
Why are they fucking fighting on this planet?
Why are they fighting on this planet? Is this a Chig planet? Is this a human planet? Is this just random planet?
Where is this in relation to Chig area versus Earth territory?
Yeah, and
the geography of it. They pay no attention to that.
What's the purpose of this fight?
What is the military advantage?
What is the overall conflict between Earth and the Chigs looking like at this moment in time? Why is this? Now, they've worked thus far because it has been used as this planet or this colony or this thing is a platform for a story to be told on, rather than it being the story. So this episode, it's irrelevant. We don't need to know all of that stuff because this is a story. But I'm saying
we don't need it.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But when it comes to the overarching of the series, this is a blemish that is growing.
Yes.
It needs to be addressed. It needs to be
just a little something.
What it needs to be shaken up. Where we need episode. We do need episodes where they do give us that. Not saying I don't want any more of these type of episodes. Of course I do. But we are in need of episodes where they give us more of the big picture understanding. And I'm not saying I want a big lore episode. I just need a episode.
Those first couple were really pretty good at that with establishing, this is a military maneuver and it's a part of this bigger plan. We're going to go here and do this thing. It's the least important thing that's going on right now because they're doing this big thing over here.
When the silicates took over that mining thing. But then you have episodes like Ray Butts where it's just me and my men were doing some secret mission here and they died. What was the mission? What was it for? What are we doing? We understand it's to fuck over the Chigs or get one up on the Chigs. We need more filling in of those details because it's just, as a nerd, I would like to know.
Yep.
And as somebody who's craving the understanding of what the game is that's being played, yeah, but at the moment they're using them these conflicts, these skirmishes, these moments as just foundations to tell little morality plays or character studies or.
It's missing that connective tissue that makes it feel like it's a world that's happening when you're not watching it.
Yes, it's a damnedest thing. This is a sci-fi war show. They obviously focus a lot more on the war than the sci-fi, which is fine by me because they're doing it rather well when it comes to the themes of war, the emotions of war, the visuals of war. But they are lacking a firm hand on the scale of it, I guess, or the living, breathing nature of it, because we talked about that a lot with season 1 of Star Trek Discovery, where we felt like we're told there's a war happening a lot, but we aren't really seeing it. Here, it's similar, but the difference is we are feeling it. We aren't seeing it, but we are feeling it, because oftentimes I keep wondering what's happening outside of the Saratoga when it comes to the battle with the chicks.
Yeah.
But every time we see it, it's
what's happening back on Earth?
Yeah.
How are they dealing with it? What is happening with the other colonies that aren't as far out?
If this was a modern series, I think they would have had the know-how or inclination to cut away from the Saratoga to other people to fill in those things. Like, again, to bring the Expanse into this, for instance, that's a show that cuts to here to there to there to here, where the UN is a character in that series. We know the UN is a character in this series, but it was only in that one episode.
Yeah.
And you wish, like, maybe could we cut back to that a little bit? Because that gave us the opportunity.
What's happening with the president?
Well, the Secretary General.
Shady fucking
Secretary General. She and that story allowed the opportunity to give us what we're talking about here. But since we are just on one ship following these one pairs of boots on this one group,
squadron.
And but that's also what this show is. So it's a tug of war. They're finding their way of going about it. But I just want to talk about that with you because I don't know if you feel that at all.
Yeah. Like, I do feel overall that it is missing a lot of those bits of connective tissue. Like, it never feels like, and this is happening in the world of Space Above and Beyond.
But just to these characters?
We watch an episode, it's like, and this week on Space Above and Beyond.
The USS Saratoga bumps into a bunch of silicates.
Like, and it's a different style, but I wish that it had the depth that is required for me to feel like there's other things happening in the world, and that perspective on our characters, and also that understanding of what happens in between. And to a certain extent, you can kind of brush some of that off, being, well, maybe they're just not on a mission in the downtime. But then I'm like, but it was really cool to see what they were doing when they were just hanging out, you know, getting to watch Macbeth and all of that shit. And I'm like, that was fun. I would like to understand that they're even just doing that while they're like, just, oh, yeah, McQueen's like, we've got 3 days or whatever weird sci-fi word they have for days. Can't remember right now. We got 3 days until our next assignment. We're going here. It's going to take us this long because, you know, space is big.
And beyond. And above.
So it's going to take us some time. And, like, having that idea and being able to fill it with, like, what all of the characters are doing and that sense. Whereas I don't think I would easily be able to do that, like extrapolating from what we've seen. I would just be like, oh, they would do this and they would do that. And Hawks would play the VR shooty game.
Oh, and his CD got taken, but thankfully West got it back.
Mm-hmm. West saved their shit.
Oh, and the day. I give this episode a yum
and
yum.
Their lives.
Oh, there you go. And their lives.
And their lives. It's a yum yum from me too.
Yum yum.
So, are you ready to hear what episode 11 is called?
Yes.
It is called. Now you need to give this some thought. The River of Stars. See, now we're getting real sci-fi names.
I think it's going to be a constellation.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a reference to a geographical location. That's my first gut instinct. My second one is that it's going... I just realized what I was saying is either it's going to be figurative or literal.
Okay.
So, like, it's either going to be, like, a location. I'm thinking, like, within space.
Space.
Or a metaphorical approach to something.
Fair enough. Well, we'll find out next time on Space Above and Beyond. Make sure to give that episode a watch in the interim. What do I know what it's about?
Do you remember this episode?
I do.
Okay.
I do. The next couple of episodes I remember. Just looking at that titles, I go, oh, yeah, I know this one, I know this one, I know this one.
You were just way too keen to get into that outro.
Oh,
I
baby, hit me one more time with the outro. We can be found on your social medias with YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast. We can be emailed over at
yumyumpod@gmail.com.
And we release stuff on our Patreon. Oh, yes, that's bonus content. That's where we record and release these episodes of our Space Above and Beyond conversations and discussions first. If you're listening to this on the main feed, well, you can head on over to the Patreon and hear what we have to say about the entire series right now. And if you're listening as a patron, well, you know what's happening. You've been here before. We've just released this episode right now to you. So thank you all so much for giving the podcast a listen. If you have not rated and reviewed us, Pags would be very upset. And he's dead.
R.I.P. Pags.
R.I.P. Pags. If he was here... Hey, you know what? They lost a few people in this episode, but they had one guy live. The nervous guy, he lived. But Pags didn't. I mean, every episode I'm wondering, would it be better if Pags was here? And the answer to each episode is yes. Yes.
Here's to Pags.